Today is Sunday, so not last Friday, but a week last Friday. Sarah and I went to breakfast at Willow on Trentham Gardens with daughter Lottie and granddaughter Gracie. Gracie is 14 months old. And Gracie's excitement when her eggs on toast arrived had to be seen to be believed. And as dogs are welcome at Willow, under the table was a very expectant Truffle, knowing that if she played her cards right, she would benefit from more than a crumb or two. And we had a delightful time. But I want to show you this morning from Mark chapter 7 that this interchange between Jesus and the Greek woman is much, much, much more delightful even than the time we had last Friday but one. And it points to where we can find true delight. So, Mark chapter 7. Now the first part of chapter 7, which Deb took us through last week, is quite sobering. And if you cast your eyes across to the left-hand column, if you're using the Church Bible, verse 7 of chapter 7, that quote from Isaiah 29, "These people honour me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me." And we know what that looks like, don't we? We've all, especially me, we've all, I imagine, had the experience of sitting here on a Sunday morning and realising that our heart isn't in it. Yes, our lips might be moving, but our hearts aren't engaged. Our heart is far from the Lord. And that sobering list of, well, Jesus calls them evils, doesn't he, in verses 21 and 22. Those things that lurk within us. You know, when out of nowhere something just pops into our minds and we are suddenly horrified by what we have found ourselves thinking. That's not me, I want to say. That's not the real me. And Jesus says, yes, it is. And that is why I have come. So, my title this morning, Finding Delight, the Cure for My Defiantly Defective Heart. I've been increasingly struck over the last couple of months as we've been working our way through Mark's Gospel, the way that Mark so skillfully interweaves the message of Jesus and the actions of Jesus. In other words, Jesus' actions and interactions illustrate and underline his message. So, for example, Jesus tells us he is the mighty God who is in control of his creation, and so we see him calming the storm. Jesus is the great shepherd of the sheep, and so we see him having compassion on 5,000 plus hungry people and sitting them down by green pastures. And chapter 7, Jesus is telling us he is able to deal with even my impure heart, impure motives, impure life. Illustrated by the fact that Jesus here deals with a girl, a family impacted by an impure spirit. I say even my. Well, yes, because against all expectations of that time, he engages here with a woman, and in that culture, someone definitely second class, someone Greek-born, not Jewish, completely the wrong background, living in Tyre, wrong neighbourhood, outside of Israel, with a daughter possessed by an impure spirit and all the social stigma that brings. What will his actions with even this woman teach us about the cure for even my impure heart? What will the delightful way that these two interact tell me about how I can interact with Jesus? So we'll look at the story from the woman's perspective, and I put down on the pew sheet some points that jumped out to me. Pursuing, but with humility. Engaging, but with persistence. Believing, but with obedience. Pursuing, but with humility. Verse 23, that sober list. All these evils come from inside and defile a person. Jesus left that place and went to the vicinity of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know it, yet he could not keep his presence secret. In fact, as soon as she heard about him, a woman whose little daughter was possessed by an impure spirit came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. The woman learned that Jesus was in the region. She had heard of him. She had concluded that he was able to rid her daughter of the impure spirit that was possessing her. As an aside, what did that look like? What were the details of her daughter's terrible suffering? We're not told. We can barely imagine. But this woman pursued Jesus. She went and found him. Please will you note her humility, because this is stressed by Mark. End of verse 25, verse 26. She fell at Jesus' feet. She begged Jesus. Is it true that we are a rights-orientated society, an entitled society at our present moment in history? I'm told that I have the right to be happy, the right to be healthy, the right to have financial security. I have the right to be heard. I have the right to be heard by God. I have the right for God to do what I want on my terms. That approach is strikingly absent in this woman. She falls at Jesus' feet. A tiny detail, but a telling detail. I was reflecting that in this building, in generations past, we would habitually kneel during our services. I'm not at all saying we should return to that, and indeed I'm conscious of Deb's words last week of the trap of falling into religiosity. You know, when habits that are good become an end in themselves. But there is a helpful symbolism in kneeling, isn't there? I guess our own generations past, our grandparents, maybe before that, they would certainly have knelt beside their beds to pray. And those of us who don't have knees that creak, would that be a helpful position for us to sometimes adopt? And that word begging. Begging, not buying, not earning, not negotiating. Begging. Asking, knowing that I have nothing to offer in return. Recognizing that I have no entitlement. Do you ever find yourself wondering whether actually God owes you. Whether he hasn't kept his side of the deal, as you see it. You know the deal? That if you follow Jesus, if you're sacrificial with your giving of your time, your energy, your money, that if you do your best to avoid some of the sinful excesses of our society, then we're entitled to things going our way. No, this woman pursues Jesus with humility. She begs. She knows she has no cards to negotiate with. Pursuing, but with humility. And secondly, engaging, but with persistence. And now we hear this perplexing sentence from Jesus that makes us say, what? Verse 26, the woman was a Greek born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. Verse 27, first let the children eat all they want, he told her, for it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. What, we say to Jesus? Did Jesus really say that? Did he really just call this woman a dog? And as you can imagine, lots of people have made lots of this down the years. I mean, Jesus calling a woman a dog? Well, clearly he's misogynistic. Clearly Christianity is misogynistic. Jesus calling a foreign person a dog? Christianity is racist. Jesus is racist. But this is a million miles away from what's happening here. If we look closely, we see Jesus not being rude and mean. No, rather we see a delightfully engaging conversation. The first thing we need to know is that the word that Jesus used for dog is not the scavenging, dangerous, feral street animal that we might imagine. The word he uses means small household dog. Household pet. This is a pooch. For those of you who know my dog, this is a truffle. And secondly, as we read between the lines of this conversation, we feel the warmth, we feel the humour, we feel the banter. What wider point is Jesus making, that Mark is bringing out, that the woman amazingly has grasped? Well, it's an immense point that Jesus is making, which is that God's massive plan to rescue a people from every tribe, every nation, every tongue had started with Israel. They were the people he had chosen, and it was through them that he was going to reach others. Jesus himself, an Israelite, a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob who changed his name to Israel. Jesus, an Israelite, came to win true Israelites who would then reach out to non-Israelites, to Gentiles, people like you and me. But at this point in history, Jesus was still at the feeding Israel stage. They were the priority in the household at that moment in history. Just as at Willow 9 days ago, the family priority was to feed the Gracie and then the truffle. Huge smile on Jesus' face. Huge smile on his face. First, let me feed the children. First, let me feed Israel. Even bigger smile on the woman's face. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord, but even the pooches under the table, they can have a crumb too, can't they? You see the woman engaging with Jesus, being persistent with Jesus. You see what she calls him, Lord. You see the warmth. You see the growing relationship. You see the growing relationship. Let me give you the punchline of my sermon so you know where we're going this morning. The cure to my defiantly defective heart is a relationship with Jesus. I mean, you might have heard it said that the very essence of being a Christian is a personal relationship with Jesus. Okay, we may respond, a personal relationship with Jesus, but what does that mean? What does that look like? This is what it looks like, says Mark. The woman pursuing, but with humility, engaging, but with persistence. Engaging, but with persistence. Isn't that any relationship? So I say something, and you say, what? And I explain, and you say, yeah, but that's how we grow. That's how we grow in understanding of each other, and in closeness, and in wisdom, which is far more than knowledge. We read Psalm 42 a few weeks ago. We read from Psalm 13 together. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes. And we said a few weeks ago, over a third of the Psalms have words like that in them. What is happening there? The people of God grappling with God, wrestling with God, pursuing God, yes, with great humility, but with great persistence. As the deer pants for the waters, I'm panting after you, Lord. And through that process of persistently engaging, receiving light, a speck, which turns into a glimmer, which turns into an outline, that one day will be bright and glorious 2020 vision. That's why God's given us our Bibles. That's why he's caused Mark to record stories like this, so that when we speak, he can engage with us. This woman is giving her heart to Jesus. This woman is being won over by Jesus. And thirdly, verse 28, Lord, she replied, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he told her, for such a reply, you may go. The demon has left your daughter. She went home and found her child lying on the bed, and the demon gone. So my third heading, believing but with obedience. This woman puts her faith in Jesus. What did that mean? It meant that when he said something, she believed him. And she acted on that belief. He said go, and she obeyed. Believing in Jesus means believing in what he says, means acting on what he says, even when it feels impossibly difficult. An illustration, I know you've heard me use this before. If I believe in my doctor, that is more than believing that my doctor exists. That is more than me going to my doctor when I feel unwell. Believing in my doctor means listening to my doctor, trusting my doctor's directions, following my doctor's directions even when I don't want to, even when I think I know better. My title, Finding Delight. Finding delight in a relationship with Jesus who is able to cure even my defective heart. Or as I've called it, my defiantly defective heart that still contains more of the poison of verses 21 and 22 than I care or dare to admit. This woman gives her heart to Jesus. She pursues, but with humility. She engages, but with persistence. She believes, not just with her lips, not just with her brain, but with her actions. Here's the question I often ask myself. What stops me fully surrendering my heart to Jesus? Maybe I have given him my heart in the past, but there's a sense, I think, isn't there, that I need to repeat that every day? This very morning, what stops me re-giving my heart to Jesus? Is it my self-sufficiency? I don't want to have to beg. I want Jesus simply to give me what I've earned, what I deserve. I want him to recognise me for all I give, all I bring. The humility bit doesn't come easily, does it? And yes, I look at those evils in verses 21 and 22. And no, I'm not totally self-deluded. I do recognise that many or all of those things do periodically seep out. But that's not the real me, I tell myself. I'm better than this, I hear myself saying. But Jesus tells me it is the real me. That is the problem. And then I find myself relying on half-truths. Well, Jesus made me like this. Jesus understands. Jesus will forgive me. Why are they half-truths? Because forgiveness and transformation is only possible when I have such a relationship with Jesus that I do not want to break his heart again. What do I do? What do I do about my defiantly defective little heart? What do I do? I once more look to find my delight in Jesus. I pursue him, but with humility. I engage with him, but with persistence. And I believe, not just with my lips, but with my obedient life. I re-give him my heart. And amazingly, I find that my heart has been won over by him.